Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. All throughout the month of November, I'm aiming to bring you a brand new review each and every day. Now, that might be a written review over on thegaminggang.com or a video review hosted by yours truly, which is obviously the case this time around. Today, I am going to be sharing my thoughts on Battlezoo Eldamon from Roll for Combat. Now, we're taking a peek at the 5e edition. This is also available for Pathfinder 2nd edition. This is written by William Fisher, Paul Hughes, and Mark Seifter. This 241-page hardcover with PDF normally carries an MSRP of $69.99. Or you can grab just the PDF alone, normally for an MSRP of $50. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you're going to end up paying for this book. And it's important for me to mention that currently, Roll for Combat is in the midst of a Black Friday sale. I do believe that's going to run through Cyber Monday 2024. So you'll be able to grab Battlezoo Eldamon at a far lower price. It's important for me to mention that. So if you are seeing this video right after it comes out, within a few days of this getting posted, by all means, swing on over to battlezoo.com and take advantage of the Black Friday sale, not just for Battlezoo Eldamon, but for loads of other Roll for Combat content. All right, all that said, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got Battlezoo Eldamon. A couple of things to mention before we jump on in. First of all, my friends over at Roll for Combat were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. All right, let's dive on in. First thing we're going to take a peek at is the credits page, because there were loads of folks who worked very hard to bring this to life. So let's give them credit where credit is due. As far as production quality, it's what we've come to expect from Roll for Combat. Just absolutely top notch. I know some folks out there will say, hey, you know, that MSRP it's a little pricey. But I will say from past experience and including this book, Roll for Combat always uses some of the absolute thickest paper stock that I see in any role-playing game book out there. And just the inks that are used, maybe you're not getting this impression from the camera, but these colors just really pop off the page. They really do jump off the page. So as far as production quality, this is excellent. This book should also hold up very well with repeated use at your game table. So what is an Eldemon? Well, simply enough, an Eldemon is a creature that's tied into an element. And if you are a fan of Pokémon or any of the other number of monster catching and training and battling sort of media out there, then Battlezoo Eldamon is going to be right in your wheelhouse, because these are those sorts of creatures. So we're going to get an explanation of what are Eldemon. We're going to actually even get some rules about battling your Eldemon against each other, or other NPC Eldemon and their handlers. And we'll also get a couple of new character classes. So we'll get a discussion, first of all, before we get into those classes, about the different elements. Going into a little bit of detail, we're going to get far, far more detail when we start exploring the elemental powers that are included in the book. In fact, that section takes up the second most page space throughout. But as far as our new classes, we get an Eldemon trainer, and we also get an Eldemon avatar. So here is our Eldemon trainer. And these aren't just thrown into the book. These are really well thought out classes. To be honest, I was a little surprised. I thought, okay, yeah, all right. Roll for Combat is kind of rolling out these little battling creatures and stuff. So especially the trainer class, I thought, it's just going to be something thrown in. It is not. And as you can see, there's a lot of page space devoted to the class. And of course, we have different archetypes, different backgrounds, essentially, for each of the two classes as well. So, really nicely done. Then we're going to get into the actual elemental powers. We have active powers, we have reactive powers, we have refresh powers, and then we have ultimate powers. And you'll see each of these elements have a lot of powers included in their entries. So, as an example, here we've got Earth. We get some special rules. What are the benefits of this element? Then we'll start moving into the active powers. Then we get into the reactive powers, some refresh powers. These tend to have just a few, just like the ultimate powers tend to have only a couple. But as you can see, there's a lot in here. And it's pretty cool because we have artwork throughout. This is lavishly illustrated. And we're going to start seeing artwork of the various different Eldemon before we get into the Eldemon entries, which is going to actually consist of the largest section of this supplement. But really well done, really interesting powers as well. We even get a breakdown of how the elements are skewed. So we'll see offense, defense, control, as well as debuff. So I thought that was a nice addition. I should also mention that any class can train and fight with Eldemon, not only the two new classes that are included in this book. The two new classes just have abilities that are tied into both the Eldemon and the elements. But if you've got a paladin or a bard or a wizard, they can all train and battle with the Eldemon. So we're going to have each of the Eldemon receive an entry. It's a couple of pages. There are over 160 Eldemon in this book. There are some tables early on where you could kind of randomly generate Eldemon if you'd like. But I got to say, this is an extensive collection of these Eldemon. So we're going to get this side of the entry is going to give us our stat blocks. It's going to talk about various different traits that the Eldemon have. And then we get 3 different forms of the Eldemon. We get pet form, battle form, evolved form. And then we'll get a little bit of a breakdown here too. So it's going to show us at a glance. Okay, so it's air element, pet. What is the rarity of it? I mean, come on. We got to have rarities of these. And then what is the source? Now, I do believe that we are going to see some additional releases from Roll for Combat in the future that will probably include some additional Eldemon. So I think that's why we've got the source indication here. But as you can see throughout, there's just loads and loads. Now, are some of these kind of silly? Yes. The artwork all does have a bit of a, I want to say cartoonish, but a little more of a cutesy sort of vibe to it, which is okay. I can see why it's got that. I got to be honest, the Morpup is one of the more goofy looking of the Eldemon. But I got to say, if you're into Pokemon and, like I said, the other monster catching, training, battling sort of media that's out there, I think you're going to love this book. I really, really do. If you want to introduce these sorts of creatures into your games of Dungeons and Dragons, in this case, or Pathfinder 2nd Edition, this is probably going to be something that you'll really want to have on your shelf. Like I said, artwork throughout, really, really nicely done. And it's just got a really nice visual layout to it. Some people might find this to be a little busy, especially with the page borders and that. I think it's fine. If the reason you would be picking this up is because you have kids who love Pokemon and such, then they're going to absolutely love flipping through this book. As I said, there are 162, if I remember correctly. I know there's more than 160 of the Eldemon, and they are all different varieties. As far as the elements, I should also mention that there are loads of new elements. So we've got elements like death and force. So it's not just our earth, wind, air, and fire. All right, so that's a peek inside Battlezoo Eldamon from Roll for Combat. Let's swing on over to the other camera because I'm going to share some final thoughts and give this a review score. I'll be very upfront. I've never watched Pokemon or Digimon or Ketchamon or any of those sorts of shows. Yes, okay, I know who Pikachu is. I've never really been into those sorts of animes. But even though this isn't something that I would probably bring into my fantasy role playing games, this is an exceptionally well done book. And if you've got any sort of interest in including those sort of creatures and that sort of training in your fantasy role playing games, either Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder second edition, then I got to say, this is essentially a must have. It really, really is. Now, granted, once again, it's not necessarily my bag of tricks, but even knowing that, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Battlezoo Eldamon a 9 out of 10. Once again, if you've got any interest in bringing those Pokemon-ish sorts of creatures and that sort of gameplay with the little creatures battling each other, then this is essentially a must-have for those of you running 5e Dungeons and Dragons or 5.5 Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. All right, that's it for this time out. If you liked the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit the newly redesigned thegaminggang.com, where you'll find tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.